I come from a long line of heroes. My grandma, my dad's mom, was a member of the greatest generation, and during World War II, she felt a call to service. Grandma was an only child, and she felt like enlisting in the Women's Army Air Corps would be a great source of pride for her parents, especially her dad, who served during World War I. My grandpa, my dad's dad, was an integral part of starting the volunteer fire department in Bloomington, Wisconsin, where he volunteered for 30 years and was the chief for more than 20. The sense of commitment did not end there. My dad's younger brother, my Uncle Scott, was named Wisconsin Firefighter of the Year when he was just 25 years old for pulling a man from a burning mobile home. And my dad's youngest brother, my Uncle Kelly, followed in the family tradition and his oldest brother's footsteps, as he was a police officer in Black River Falls and later a firefighter in the Wisconsin Rapids area. So the sense of commitment we all saw in my dad was genetic. It was in his genes to help and serve others. That was an excerpt from my dad's eulogy. This past July, I had the very unfortunate experience of planning my dad's funeral and delivering his eulogy. Thank you for joining me today so that I can share with you the story of his heroism and my experiences with his loss. My dad was my greatest supporter and my hero since I can remember. I'm an only child, and from the moment my dad named me, Cora, after his grandma, our special bond was formed. I was so lucky to have such an incredible role model to look up to for nearly 42 years, and I'll continue to follow the extraordinary example he set for me, even though he's no longer here. On July 12, 2014, my world came crashing in around me because of the unexpected premature death of my dad. I'm so proud to say that the heroism he displayed throughout his life and on the day he died will forever be his legacy. I'm going to be describing for you how my dad impacted my life through his unconditional devotion to me and my 3 kids, how our last days together at the family cabin will be my most cherished memories, and how he exemplified heroism throughout his entire life right up until his very last day. Life is so very short and can go by in the blink of an eye. I got a kick in the teeth reminder of that this past July when I received a firsthand lesson on how important it is to spend time with those you care about and how critical it is to tell them how much they mean to you. Because once that chance is gone, you can't ever get it back. And it's so important not to have any regrets. Even though I was fortunate enough to spend a week with my dad just a few days before he died, and I spoke to him the morning that he passed away, our last words to one another were, "I love you." Even those things aside, I longed so desperately to talk to Dad one more time. I wanted to thank him for everything he'd done for me throughout my entire life. On Saturday morning, July 12th, I got a phone call from Dad. We talked for a little bit. He filled me in on what he and Grandma had been doing since the kids and I had left. He also told me that he would be driving Grandma back to her home, which was about a 2.5-hour trip from the family cabin. He'd spend the night at her place, and then he'd be heading back home to northern Wisconsin the following day, and that we'd see each other that week. I was instructed to continue getting his mail and feeding the fish. Instead, later that afternoon, a sheriff's deputy who happened to work for the town of Iron River while my dad was the chief there pulled into the driveway. Time instantly slowed to a crawl. He explained that there had been an accident, and I was certain that he was going to tell me that my 90-year-old grandma had perished. I was very wrong. I found out that Dad and Grandma had only gotten about 5 miles from the cabin when they came upon a 3-car accident, and one of the vehicles was engulfed in flames. Dad, having 40 years law enforcement and 20 years firefighting experience, quickly sprang into action. He called 911, and he grabbed the fire extinguisher that he carried in his vehicle and went instantly to the engine that was in flames and extinguished it, and was able to do so successfully. And the driver that had been pinned inside, Dad pulled to safety. The deputies in Jackson County on the scene that day credit my dad for saving that man's life. But after Dad pulled the driver from the vehicle and got him to safety, and the rescue workers were assisting him, Dad walked back to his car where Grandma waited and watched, and just as he reached the front tire, he collapsed and died of a heart attack instantly. That day, I was abruptly left without the person who I was closer to than anyone else on earth. My confidant, my biggest fan, my greatest supporter and resource, and the person who cared for me more than anyone else in the world was suddenly gone. It seemed incomprehensible, and some days, now, even 9 months later, it still does. I still want to pick up the phone and tell him something funny I heard, or tell him about somebody I ran into that he knew, or be surprised when he stopped by the house with Oreos, usually double stuffed, for my kids. I so desperately want him back so that I can just tell him how important he was to me. I desperately want to tell him how grateful I am for him, for everything he taught me, for his undying honesty, his fabulous, sometimes sick sense of humor, usually to get my goat, but most importantly for his unconditional love and devotion for me and my kids. The death of my dad left me forever changed, but his heroism will forever be his legacy, and I'm so proud to call him my dad. In my life, I will never encounter as big a hero as my dad, and my life will truly never be the same now that he's gone. In his Oscar acceptance speech this year for Best Supporting Actor in the movie Whiplash, J.K. Simmons said, "Call your mom, call your dad. If you're lucky enough to have a parent or two alive on this planet, call them. Don't text, don't email. Call them on the phone. Tell them you love them and thank them, and listen to them for as long as they want to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And thanks to each and every one of you for taking the time to hear about how special my dad was to me and what a hero he was to so many." Can you go around the audience one more time?